Do you want to know how to pick the best movies for your children? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and that's what we're talking about today. I teach parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, and talk about childhood development all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about what you should know about picking videos. Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about the warnings, what to watch out for when you're picking movies or videos or any type of media really for your children, because we really should be involved in a lot of that picking. Also, we should talk about the good stuff that we want to look for and what characteristics make a great movie for a child to be watching, because yes, there are some great ones. But then also at the end of this video, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my personal favorites and tell you where you can get my full list. Warning, just so you know, not all movies are safe for children. I know that's no news flash for anybody, because there are many things that parents would say, no way is my child seeing that. I remember when I was a young mom, I moved into a neighborhood and there was a girl that happened to be talking to our family. We'd never met her before, and I was standing there with my son. She was a little bit older than my son, and my son at the time was just a toddler, but she was very talkative, and she's like, oh, what's your favorite movie? And my son was, probably saying something like Winnie the Pooh, because that was his favorite movie. I don't really remember what he responded, but that was probably it. And then she's like, oh, my favorite movie's Coyote Ugly. And I was like, what? How could a child that's like 4 be watching Coyote Ugly about strip dancing? I mean, I'm like, what? I never even saw the movie for myself. I didn't want to see it, and I was completely shocked. In fact, it made me wonder if the child was being groomed to be a sex toy for somebody, because that type of a program for a child that age is not developmentally appropriate. And the only reason I could think that it would be used is if somebody was trying to sexually groom their child. So very disappointing. And I know some things like that do happen, and I'm always against that kind of thing for sure. But warning, obviously sexual stuff, warning. But there's other things that you should watch for. So you definitely should be watching for attitude problems. Anytime a character in a story, especially if they are the hero character, behaves in a certain way, and you show it to a child, especially if you don't ever discuss it, then you are giving your silent endorsement of that behavior. You are saying, oh yeah, people communicate like that, and I'm okay if you communicate with me like that. So keep that in mind, because whatever they see, whether it's attitude, poor language, innuendo, wasting time wasting, like, oh, just video gaming or whatever it is, those types of things will be what they think are okay if you allowed them to watch the program, especially when they're young. Also, another warning is sexual content. I know that's probably one on a lot of people's radar, a lot of parents would think of, but one thing that I didn't realize is how even just kissing can really impact a young child. When my daughter was 6, she was watching Cinderella. We're talking Disney's Cinderella, not the live person one, the cartoon one. And at the very end of Cinderella, they're driving away and they kiss in the carriage, okay? Like in the window of the carriage. And she looks at me because she's completely open. She's 6 years old and she'll talk about anything. And she says, Mom, my bottom feels funny and I don't know why. And I was like, holy cow, is a kiss possibly arousing my 6-year-old daughter on a Disney movie? And so I thought, boy, I'm going to have to be careful. And so we decided she wasn't going to see any movies for a while that had kissing in them. We just weren't going to go there because we didn't want to sexually stimulate her that could lead to self-pleasuring, exploration, stuff like that, that we're like, no, we're not going there yet. We're going to give it time. Now, that doesn't mean she never saw movies with kissing, because she saw lots of movies with kissing, but we just waited because we recognized that wasn't a good time for her to see that type of thing when she brought that to our attention. So be very cautious about that, and all of those language choices and the ways that people communicate with each other. Another big warning that I would say is you want to watch out for ideological indoctrination. So if you're a religious person, then you want to watch a religious show. That's not ideological indoctrination, because you want it. In fact, you believe the same thing, so you're now on the same page. But if you were to watch a show that pushed atheism, that would be ideological indoctrination. Now, the reverse of that would also be true. If you're an atheist person and you watch a show that's pushing religious stuff, you might feel like it's ideologically trying to indoctrinate you. So you would want to stick to stuff that is godless then, right? For your particular compass and your direction in life. Well, the same thing that is going to happen when it comes to many other ways that we live our lives. Drinking, not drinking, drugs, not drugs, sexual activities and sexual preferences or gender things, and the opposite, right? All those things are going to be things that might conflict with the way that you see the world as a family. And so it is totally okay for you to say, we're not watching that yet. We will discuss all that at some point, but first we're going to have lots of stuff that shows this is the type of family we want to have. Look at this family, Little House on the Prairie, say, for instance. Maybe you think that's just a little too wholesome for your bunch, but they show full family. They show families resolving conflict, having stresses and trauma and frustrations, but they show the family pulling together. They show how the family handles it in a really healthy, productive way. So those would then be movies I would consider to be very good movies for my children, because they build up our culture and our ideological, ethical, religious views in our family. So you've got to watch out for that. And then one of the biggest things that I think we put up with, which we shouldn't, is dysfunctional family relationships. So many movies, especially movies for children, present parents in a bad light, probably trying to identify with a frustration a child might have. But in the end, that's very manipulative, actually. And so we need to make sure that we watch out for that, because if you want your child to want a fully functioning family, they've got to see that that's possible. And that can be a tall order, but I will show you how to do that. So we're going to talk about the good stuff that you want to be looking for, some of the characteristics that make a great movie choice for children, and what some of my favorite picks are. But first, subscribe to this channel. That way, you'll see more of the content from this channel whenever you open YouTube. Subscribe now. So let's talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about the characteristics that you do want to find in a good movie to show a child. Here are the characteristics that make a great movie choice for a child. And honestly, I have to say for myself too, because I am picky for myself on what I will waste my time on as well, because I don't want it to be a waste of time. If I'm going to learn something from a video, or I'm going to feel better in some way because of that, then I'll spend my time watching that movie or that video. But otherwise, I might as well do something else, right? Because there's tons of ways we can spend our time. So one thing is, it's got to be timeless. Timeless, that means that it can stand the test of time. That doesn't mean popular. That means that whatever is taught in there, that story that is in there, is timeless. So when I think of timeless, I think of like Romeo and Juliet. Okay, now I know that that story has, death in it and some pretty extreme stuff. But how many love stories have been made on the concept of Romeo and Juliet? Or let's take an even more common or classic example, which is Cinderella. Cinderella and Romeo and Juliet have had the most copycat as far as movies taking their ideas for how to roll out the love story than any other format out there for a love story. So they are a classic love story. Boy looking for the right girl, girl looking for the right boy but stuck in a bad circumstance, or could be the reverse, because you could always reverse that and still be having a Cinderella mode going on, right? And then they meet each other and they end up figuring out a way to connect together, and then they can't have their relationship, and now they can have their relationship. I mean, think of every Hallmark movie you've ever seen, just about, okay? It's gonna fall into a Cinderella story category. And why do people love their Hallmark movies? Because they love Cinderella. I love Cinderella. I can't get enough of it. I think it's beautiful. Now, does a Cinderella story happen in everybody's life? No, but then I'm also gonna watch a movie called Not a Cinderella Story, or I think it's called Not Cinderella's Story, or something like that, where there is this Cinderella element, but then we see how it doesn't always turn out like Cinderella, but you still can end up having happiness in the end. So there you go. Cinderella is still there for all of these stories. So watch for the timeless elements, because if you can find a theme that is usually timeless, that you learn something from, or you get hope from, it brings you some sort of peace or truth, then probably that's gonna be a step in a good direction. Another characteristic that you'll wanna watch for is if something is transformational. Transformational means that you want to become a better version of yourself because you saw it. So that means you'd want to say something different, be something different, go and do something different because you saw that movie. So transformational. Do you want your children to see themselves as improving as people? Yes, of course we all want that. So make sure that element is in the movie too. Along those same lines, when you're looking at the hero of the movie, make sure that the hero improves or changes in a positive way. If the hero ends up becoming worse in the show, then probably that show is a bent show. The movie is bent. So there's different types of movies and books. There's either whole, broken, bent, or healing. And the best ones are whole and healing. So let me explain. In a whole movie, the good guy's good, the bad guy's bad, and the good guy wins. That's a good message. In a broken movie, the good guy's good, the bad guy's bad, but the bad guy wins. That's actually okay to watch that, because sometimes we don't get our way even if we're doing the right thing, and that's a good lesson to remember. You don't want to watch too much of that though, or life gets kind of like a downer. You don't have a lot of hope, right, in being the good guy. In fact, you might start wanting to become the bad guy, which is a problem. Now that brings us to bent. Bent has a serious problem because bent, the good guy's bad and the bad guy's good, and the good guy wins. Now it sounds good that the good guy wins, but the good guy's bad. So you're rooting for the bad guy. Or it turns important morals and principles for your life on their head. So maybe it's a child who's supposedly the good guy, but they have to get away from their parents because their parents are too oppressive and they don't want their parents telling them what to do. So the good guy has made the parents, who are normally the good guy, the bad guy, and then we're rooting for that good guy who's doing the bad things to get out from under their parents' thumb, or to do things without their parents knowing. That would be bent. That's a bent story. So I wouldn't want to show that type of a movie to my children. Then there's healing. Healing, usually the good guy's good, the bad guy's bad, and the good guy wins. But sometimes it's also just ideas that you need, that are food to your soul, that feed you in a good way. And usually those are things you can come back to again and again and again. Lessons learned that you know you need and that you desire. If you can find a movie that's full family, that brings in the full family because you want your children to love their full family, that's another characteristic that you're going to be looking for. So let's talk about some of my favorite movies, maybe just a couple, and then I'll tell you where to get a bigger list and where to learn more about great movie recommendations that you might want to learn about. Some of my favorite movies, in fact, for our family, probably one of our top movies for our family. Now this is probably for ages 8 and up. One of our top movies is the movie The Scarlet Pimpernel. The Scarlet Pimpernel. So there was a book written called The Scarlet Pimpernel. But we love this because it's a story of duty, sacrifice, serving for a greater cause, family, marriage, love, government going corrupt, and what people are trying to do about it. It really brings in so many great elements for discussion. Plus there's sword fighting and a love story. So you can't beat A Scarlet Pimpernel. I will say there is one moment where there's a guy laying next to another girl in bed, and it's clear that they did sleep with each other and they're not married. You'll have to talk about that one, but there's nothing graphic or anything. Anyway, just so you know. just so you're not shocked if you see that. So preview it to make sure you like it for your family too. I love the movies by the Kendrick brothers because the Kendrick brothers are usually bringing in all of the elements or characteristics that I've already talked about. They've got Fireproof and Courageous and Facing the Giants. Those are great movies. And movies like War Room. Great shows that you can watch that will hold up family values and help people overcome their vices, but also see that we all have problems and we have to keep taking steps to work on them. So super realistic, inspiring shows. Thank you to them for putting out good family entertainment. One of my favorite Christmas shows is The Nativity Story. It was made in the early 2000s. It's a full 2-hour show. And we get to see the culture around the time of Christ and really see this Mother Mary pondering things in her heart. So if you want a great one, look up The Nativity Story. It was put out, like I said, in like the early 2000s. All right, 2 more quick ones for you. If you love Cinderella, Slipper and the Rose. Slipper and the Rose is a beautiful musical of Cinderella that a lot of people don't know about. Look that up. We also love musicals, okay? So that's just one musical, but there are 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, Fiddler on the Roof, Oklahoma, so many great musicals, Rodgers and Hammerstein style, that are so fun to watch and discuss with the children. And speaking of movies, that brings me to one of my all-time favorites, which is The Sound of Music, the one with Julie Andrews in it. How can you go wrong with The Sound of Music? That show teaches so much about sacrifice for family and what family truly should be. In fact, this nun gets to learn what it really means to be part of a family in such a powerful way, and what kind of opposition, like ideological opposition, that might be pushing at the doors of your family, and what steps you might have to take in order to keep your family safe. So what an incredible show The Sound of Music is, and of course the music is just alive, because the hills are alive, right? In that Sound of Music. There are so many other videos or movies that I could suggest to you, and so what I'm going to invite you to do is to go to teachingselfgovernment.com, which is my website all about parenting. I have a podcast on that website. In fact, there are many, many podcasts there. Podcast number 110 is all about movie recommendations that I have. And there is a full list there that you can view or download for free of a ton of movies. It's in no way exhaustive because there's so many movies that I could put on there, but ones that I feel like families might like. And I even put out to the side what age those movies might be good for. So go to teachingselfgovernment.com and listen to that podcast and any other podcast you might want to find.